It's time once again for your weekly preview with the Commissioner, Mark Well. Gentlemen, welcome back for week 6 of the Fantasy Football Report. It's your Commissioner, Mark Wells, who slacked quite a bit in the early going this year, missing several weeks where I should have been making previews and didn't. Relied on my assistant to fill in 1 week, and he didn't get the job done. But I think we can all agree that in the last 2 weeks, I've come on very strong, this being the second of those 2 weeks. And there's a lot to talk about this week. And to make it all the more special, we have a special guest joining us this week. And for all you league members at home watching this on your couch, I'm sure by looking at this live satellite into the home of this league member, you can guess who it is. Ladies and gentlemen, let me bring in the assistant commissioner to the league, future commissioner to the league, and current owner of the Bermuda Street Bumblebees, who have moved their location, Red Wells. Red, come on in. I'd love to have you.
All right, here. Wow, what an introduction. Thanks for having me, Mark.
Well, no problem at all. No problem at all. I'm glad you got dressed up for the big event. Hopefully you got a good night's sleep and you got your coffee and are ready to go today.
It's all ready. Breast Cancer Awareness October. Just trying to do my part.
Great, great. Now, I know people aren't as interested in this as they are the football, but is it the Ethiopian blend in the cup this morning?
It is. It is. It originated in this one, but I thought, in lieu of all our female fans out there, that it'd be nice to show our support for breast cancer awareness.
Absolutely, and it's a great cause, and I'm glad you thought of it. I wish I had. First off on the report, I guess wanted to get your reaction to this week's the first power rankings we've introduced. Any surprises for you? Anything that you would have changed if you were in charge of that report?
It looks pretty. The one thing that jumped out at me was, and I'm trying to get it up here, was the Second Street Studs having a record of 1-3, or is it 1-4? 1-4,
yeah.
Being ahead of Team Irrelevance. That really jumped out at me. Scoring a couple more points, not a significant number of points, but that's the one thing. That's the one thing that really jumped out. As far as the Big Blue, his performance this year, you can't argue with their position, but I know he's giving it his all to get back up where he's used to being a little bit higher in the standings.
Yeah. I mean, I thought that, and I had something to do with it, but maybe some of the comments on the power rankings were a bit harsh, but overall, I thought very fair. You mentioned Team Irrelevance and the quality record of 3-2, just a game back in that division. But when you look at the numbers they're putting up each and every week, a little bit of luck involved, don't you think?
Well, I think a couple of his players haven't performed up to what we've expected and what we've seen in years past. He's had one of the strongest group of keepers with McCoy, with Foster, and he's had Rivers for a while. I can't remember who his third keeper was offhand, but that's that to me. The luck, I haven't paid, to be honest with you, haven't paid terrible attention to his development as far as week to week, but I know he's been a strong player year in year out, and so his standing as far as total points up in the upper half does not surprise me.
I'll tell you the team that surprises me most. I mean, if you take Big Blue out, that goes without saying. You never expect him to be at the bottom of the league. I mean, I think we can all agree a little more luck involved in fantasy football than baseball. But beyond that, I think the Wilton Bluffers, they came in with such a strong attack last year, first time in the league, and I think a lot of prep was done by the Bluffers, and I don't know if they're playing a little bit of possum here. Are they going to come on in the second half of the fantasy regular season, or do you think they're already looking towards next year?
Well, I spoke to Darren a short while ago. I told him to make sure he keeps his head up. He can't really get too down and out about this. Brandon Marshall performed quite well last night.
Yeah.
But Cam Newton's been a disappointment thus far, and as has C.J. Spiller. So he doesn't have a lot of big guns here to rely on. if his, I'm assuming he was relying on Cam Newton to a degree that he performed last year, but that sophomore jinx seems to have caught up with him. He hasn't performed. He hasn't performed poorly by any means, but it's not the 9.5 points last week. Isn't what you expect from a top 5 quarterback last year. But he still has Marshall. Gonzalez has been playing well, although on a bye this week. So he's a little down about his team, but I think better days are coming.
Well, we're going to get to our weekly picks here in a little bit, but just quickly, I mean, the Bluffers being a 57-point underdog to my Nitro, just ridiculous. I can't imagine that that's going to be what happens. One other thing I wanted to touch on with you this week, you more so than any other team, got some very disheartening news. Arguably your best player and most important player, Julio Jones, is out, and I think I want to know, the league wants to know, how does your team respond to a loss like that?
Hey, there's no replacing Julio, and I think everyone would agree with that. It was the news coming in on Monday was more than painful, and Julio, everybody probably doesn't know this. He broke his foot and kept playing in that game. Made one of the most spectacular catches I've seen, and he's been with me for 3 years now. This is going on his 3rd year. How do we look to rebound? That's what it all starts in the auction process and the draft process. You try and accumulate as many powerful studs as possible. That's what we here at the Beast tried to do with Breeze. Rice is coming into shape and form, 30 points last week. Bush has played strong, top 10 running back, having missed a week. Doesn't take that into account, still averaging on the top 10. A.J. Green, top 10, although he's underperformed so far this year. And the Chiefs have been the number 1 defense for a while. So I picked up a couple of young receivers, hoping to not fill the shoes of Julio, but maybe fill part of the void left by the number 1 receiver in fantasy. And the process, from my point of view, is you try and get as many powerful players as you can. So if one goes down, hopefully you have enough strength to overcome that.
Absolutely, and we know that Second Street also tries to accumulate as many studs as possible, for sure. Let's go into this week's matchups. We got a few really good ones. I think it really sticks out as far as I can see. Probably the tightest matchup this week is a bit of a shock, but given the loss of Julio Jones and maybe a couple bye weeks, we'll look at this in more depth in just a second. You take on Big Blue. Now, he's taught you a lot, how to walk, how to talk, how to swing that bat, and of course, even little things, not so much how to swing a golf club, but which club to use on a certain hole. So in a situation like this where you're taking on the guy that's last in the power rankings, you're number 2, yet he's favored. What does that tell you as you head into this week's matchup?
Any given Sunday, any given Sunday in the NFL and fantasy, teams are the best and the worst. There's not a big difference compared to other sports and other activities. And so what it tells me is I need to pick it up. There's everyone's going to ask you when you're at the top or you're near the top, and in order to keep pace or to stay on top of the mountain, you got to bring your A game because everyone's going to be bringing it against you, no doubt.
Absolutely, and it looks like just looking closely here, Charles Gray out for you this week. That looks to be your only starter that won't be in this week's lineup. Is that right? Other than obviously the loss of Julio Jones.
Well, I picked him up a couple weeks ago when Jermichael Finley was out with a concussion, and he's performed 7 among tight ends in the league. So he's not too many people know about Charles, but he lines up in different positions with the Miami Dolphins. Sometimes he'll play running back, split end, or tight end. He's a good blocker, so he doesn't have to come out, which makes him a very reliable target. But yes, everybody else, I've got DeAndre Hopkins, a young receiver out of Houston. However, his production might increase given that Andre Johnson's day-to-day with the shin. So if he's out, I look for big things from Hopkins, who's had a couple big weeks so far. But everything else, Bush has been strong, and I think Ray Rice is really full strength for the first time in a number of weeks. And Pierce looks to be not at 100%. So hopefully Rice will get a bulk load of his carries this week. And carried me to victory. However, Big Blue is favored, I believe, by 7 points last I looked. So it's an uphill battle, but it's one I'm looking forward to.
Now, probably maybe one of the more shocking things that I've seen in fantasy circles to this point is the fact that the man that most people thought would never end up in a starting lineup for Big Blue has actually taken over the starting job this week at quarterback. Is he going off last week's 58-point performance? Is he just unsure of that Cleveland defense and Matthew Stafford and the uncertainty of what Calvin Johnson's going to do? Your thoughts on Tony Romo taking over as a starting quarterback this week for Big Blue?
I think Tony Romo is a very good player, and it doesn't an interception late in the fourth quarter doesn't count any more than an interception in the first. So Tony's ability to get the ball downfield, prolong the play, and score points. He was neck and neck with Peyton, who's at a pace we've never seen before, and it seems to be that. It shows Big Blue's dedication to win, his commitment to any player that can produce. There's a spot on Big Blue for you. So I really think that's a testament to the owner, Mark Flackwell's. Winning isn't the only thing. Winning is everything. I think he truly believes that.
I mean, we have to look at the past to get an indication of the future. There's no denying that. And you noted earlier that the Kansas City Chiefs defense #1 in the league. But looking forward, this week you're going to be taking on what appears to be one of the strongest defenses in the league in the Seattle Seahawks. Any chance they're the #1 defense from this point forward?
In the NFL, perhaps. In fantasy, no. The Chiefs, just looking at a quick comparison here, the Chiefs have scored in 4 of the first 5 weeks. The only challenge I foresee with the Chiefs, given their upcoming schedule, they have Oakland, Houston, Cleveland, Buffalo the next 4 games. I can't see them putting up anything less than 20 points a week versus those 4 opponents. They have a bye, and then they play the Broncos. Now, I can't imagine playing any defense versus the Broncos, whether or not they're the best in the league. So there will need to be another defense selected. But if I take a look at the Seahawks here briefly, the Seahawks are #3. They've scored once in 5 weeks. They've scored over 30 once. So they're very good, and they're probably the best defense in the NFL. But as far as scoring points in fantasy, which is the name of the game, they fall a little short.
Okay, great. Well, I think that covers it. That's certainly the prime matchup for the week.